Welcome to the Journey of a Man podcast with your host, Dre Jordan. This podcast is created for men to talk about our journey in life, which ultimately determines who we are or will become. The obstacles we face are real and often will derail us from our desired destination. This podcast gives us a platform to express ourselves about the journey we have experienced, our upbringing, relationships, marriages, fatherhood, careers, finances, loss of loved ones, spirituality, divorce, and co parenting. Hopefully, bridging our support for one another while respecting and uplifting other men and women. The trajectory for men must change, and together we can create a pathway to success. My next guest, Mitch Credle, a native Washingtonian who grew up in Northwest DC, was educated in the public school system and graduated college with a BA in criminal justice from UDC. Mitch is an author, entrepreneur, independent film director, and producer. Mitch was a high profile homicide detective with the Washington Metropolitan Police Department, then transferred to the Sexual Assault Unit, where he investigated sex related crimes until he retired in October of 2015. He authored two books: Stranger in the Streets, published in 2010, and Damaged Roots, published in 2011. In 2015, former U.S. Attorney Eric Holder selected Mitch to investigate the high profile death of high school student Kendrick Johnson in Valdosta, Georgia. And he also appeared as himself in a documentary, Finding Kendrick Johnson, produced by actress Jennifer Lewis and film producer Jason Pollock, showing on VOD and Stars. In 2016, Mitch was the first ever to debut a feature film at the historical Howard Theater. During his career, he appeared on CNN, The Connie Chung Show, America's Most Wanted, discussing the violence in DC in the 80s and 90s. In 2017, Mitch co founded a nonprofit youth organization called Safe House DC, where youths are taught film production, digital media, financial literacy, entrepreneurship, job readiness, community police relationships, and life skills. Mitch continues to give back to the community, trying to reach the youth as a behavioral specialist at a DC public charter middle school. Mitch is currently working on a documentary of retired NBA superstar Steve the Franchise Francis on his journey through life. Wow, bro. I want to thank you, first of all, for joining me, Mitch. I set this
Definitely
platform.
appreciate you having me, man. Most definitely.
Absolutely, man. You one of our stellar brothers in the district for sure. But one thing, I set this platform up, man, because I want to celebrate our brothers right now. Not when we burying you and talking over you, the eulogy or something. I want to celebrate us brothers now, recognize our brothers, and just see what we can do to help our young brothers out today. What you're doing, because we have to reach our youth nowadays to break that generational curse, as you well know, through
Hmm.
the traumatic times that we went through in DC during the crack cocaine era, during that big old bust of criminal crime and everything else, man. It seems to still affect us today.
Hmm.
And what I mean by that is that back then we had the grandmoms now who raised the kids back up in those times, and we just need to um, break that cycle, that generational curse. Because I'm looking at our brothers, Mitch, and they lost. I'm not
Yeah.
saying all of them. I'm just saying majority of them they're lost. They don't even know how to treat a woman nowadays. Um, just the basic things that you and I were taught back in the day when we were growing up,
Hmm. I
right?
agree.
That we don't abuse a woman, that we treat them like a queen. Yeah, we have our problems, absolutely, but we learn how to deal with that. Um, so I just want to thank you, man. Take me through, Mitch, because you got a lot, brother. You got a
Mhm.
lot that you're doing, and you are to be celebrated, man, for sure. This is Black History Month, and I want to celebrate you because you are doing an awful lot. You're breaking barriers. You're reaching out young youth nowadays and teaching them things that we wasn't taught back in the day, right? So I want to thank you, man. Just take me through your life, man. Take me, when you grew up, where you grew up, through your high school. Just in short, then on to the police department, how you investigated the crimes, da da da, on and on, man. I'll interject as we go, but just take me through.
Okay. My family, we arrived in DC in 1968 when I was 5 years old, came from Hampton, Virginia. That's where a lot of the families were coming from during that era, coming from Norfolk area, North Carolina. So my father arrived here in 1968. He brought us up here. I was age 5 years old, living over in a pretty rough neighborhood called Butler Gardens in Southeast. I was over there until I was 12 years old, finished at Moulton Elementary. We moved up northwest to area near Raymond Recreational Center. And that's when I started going to Lincoln Junior High School. And that's where I formed many of my uptown relationships once I, got up there. But it was a sort of, I would say, shell shocking for me because over in Butler Gardens, it was projects. So to live for 7 years in the projects, then all of a sudden we living in a home in a nice neighborhood up at 10th and Spring Road. It was different, and the people necessarily weren't different, but the environment was different. I wasn't used to seeing a bunch of homes. Now I'm seeing guys and young ladies coming to school looking real nice. We were struggling over in Southeast, and what really made me realize that it was totally different. And I'm not down talking to anyone, over in Butler Gardens, all the girls were tomboys. They looked like guys. They were just as rough as we were. We had no crushes. We had no crushes on any of them. We treated them like they were the guys. But moving up northwest, I started seeing light-skinned girls with long hair, and I'm sitting there like, whoa, because we didn't see all that in the Southeast. It was a little rough environment. So just that environment change was different, man, And that's why when people joke about it today, I remember it when I was young, when I saw the difference myself personally, and it's real, But after, going through Lincoln for 3 years, I went to Cardozo. I was supposed to be going to Roosevelt because Win Redmond and Larry Atkins were my neighborhood heroes from the right there where I lived at. And matter of fact, Win Redmond lived right around the corner from me. But all the guys from Cardozo were like, nah, sure, you got to go to Cardozo. So I took that 10-block walk to Cardozo instead of a few blocks going to Roosevelt. And the Cardozo experience was most definitely different. We was right smack in the middle of projects. You're talking Clifton Terrace, Garfield Terrace. So, for me, it felt like being back in Southeast. So I was most definitely comfortable with that environment. And I really enjoyed myself. A lot of the people I went to Lincoln with came to Cardozo, like my guy Stanley Richards, who you know very well. So it was pretty cool. Played sports. And, when I finished at Cardozo, I went to UDC, where a lot of us went to UDC. UDC was like a giant high school, It was probably the best years of my life, being up UDC 81, 82, during that time period. And I believe it was matter of fact, I know it was 1986. Matter of fact, I wasn't even finished at UDC yet. I was, I think, a junior. Back then it took forever to finish school. I was a junior, and I saw an advertisement in the newspaper. And by this time, I was a father of a 4-year-old little girl. And, with a part-time job, going to UDC, struggling to help her moms take care of her, I saw an announcement in the Washington Post newspaper about, police department is hiring. I was very hesitant because, we only police officers we dealt with back in the day, as you know, was the officers from the Boys and Girls Club. We didn't deal with no other police officers. And I was hesitant, but I'm glad I did fill out the application to join the police department. And just surprisingly, when I got a phone call from the recruiter was one of my former coaches, Mr. Officer Willie Borton from the Boys and Girls Club.
Wow.
So when he called me and said, be a recruiter, I was like, oh, wow, it's pretty cool. So he led me through the process, and he kept me focused. I really wasn't sure if I wanted to do it. And I did it, and just making that move and hitting that police academy just changed my entire life.
I bet. How long did you been in the police department?
I was on the police department for 29 years,
Mm-hmm.
from 1986, and I retired in October 2015.
Wow. So you was with the homicide initially, and I know it was during the times where we had a boom in homicides as
Yeah,
well.
it was crazy, no doubt.
Man, let me just say this: it had to be difficult because I knew you saw some of your friends who were laying on the ground too.
Yeah.
And I know it had to be difficult for you, but you was touted as like a high profile homicide detective, which meant right that you were solving crimes.
Yeah, and I think what happened was even early on as a young uniformed police officer, the homicide guys just come in my neighborhood down by the area of 14th Clifton Street Northwest, because I was a youth coach in basketball and football at the Boys and Girls Club number 10 right there at 14th Clifton. So I knew that community very well, and by me just knowing that community and coaching at that community, as you know, with the Boys and Girls Club, you go into a lot of other communities.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm building a great deal of relationships even before I joined the police department, just through youth, coaching youth sports.
Mm-hmm.
So now I know a lot of people in the city. So when homicide was having a lot of murders in that area where I was coaching, I used to always help them solve a lot of their cases as a uniformed police officer. So back then, to get promoted as a detective, all it took was veterans, and our office in homicide was just a bunch of savvy veterans. All it took was veterans to tell their captain or their commander, I want that officer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they did with me. You talking, I was on the streets, I started on the streets from the police academy in 87. 2 years later, about 1989, I had homicide detectives recommend that I be sent downtown, even though I ain't had no experience as far as investigating cases, but due to the fact that I knew the community, I was real street savvy, knew a lot of people, they wanted me to come down there and learn. So I went down there and I thought I was going straight to homicide, but they ended up throwing me into the burglary and arson in 1989. Even though I didn't want to be in burglary and arson as a detective, that slow pace taught me how to be a detective. Now I know how to do the paperwork. I know how to do interrogations. I know how to do the interviews. I know how to process and canvas and do anything involving crime scene. So in a way, that slow pace of working burglaries and arsons helped me.
Mm-hmm.
So after I did my time there, after a little over a year and a half, that's when I got sent to homicide, and that's when it just took off, because cases were coming in. I'm a homicide in 1991. Cases coming in left to right, and I was knowing just as many suspects as I was knowing the victims.
Right.
So a lot of the older guys in office were getting me involved in a lot of their cases, and so it sort of helped me build a reputation in the office. Even though I was pretty young, I was only like 25, 26 years old as a detective, but it helped me build a rapport with the older guys because they had some cases they couldn't close, and I was helping them close those cases.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what helped propel me and move me up, and I started just being involved in a lot of the high profile cases. And then from 91 to 2002, I was just investigating regular homicides, and then 2002, they sent me to the unit, was called the Major Case Cold Case Unit. So I spent the rest of my time as a homicide detective just basically just investigating high profile murders. And that's how I got involved with so many things dealing with the media outlets. Of course, met all the local media people. Then I started meeting a lot of the national media people just because I was assigned to a lot of high profile cases here in DC.
Mm-hmm. And that's what we needed, man, is somebody to be in touch with the community.
Yeah.
See, have so many, and that still exists today, whereas you have so many officers that's not in touch with the community. Right?
Yeah, I agree.
Communications and everything else. So I mean that was very important. So when you finished that, you mentioned that you went into the sex crime department.
Yeah, and what happened was it was unfortunate. I really didn't want to go to the sex unit. I think it was 2013, last couple of years of my career. We had got and I haven't even told the story, so I'm gonna tell you the first person. I'm gonna tell you the first person to know this. What happened was in 2013, my last couple of years on the job, we had got a new lieutenant in the cold case major case unit. And when they told me who the lieutenant was going to be, I sort of was like, you know, that's bullshit. I ain't man, that dude can't tell us what to do. And the only reason I say that because he had homicide experience, but as a cold case detective, we review and investigate cases that a lot of detectives can't close. That doesn't make me any better. That was just my position. So one of the cases that I investigated that he had was a case where he, on purpose, locked up the wrong person. People make mistakes, but he did it on purpose. He lied and said this guy confessed to a murder, and the guy did not confess to that murder. I watched the videotape. U.S. Attorney's Office watched the videotape. They dropped the charges, and I was just pissed off that they're going to make him our supervisor, and he, on purpose, locked someone up for murder who did not commit the murder. So I could not work for that particular person. And I basically told him, I mean, you know, I was respectful, but you know, I basically said, "You full of shit. How you gonna supervise us? And you up here locking up someone for murder that didn't even commit a murder, not by mistake. You did it on purpose. I saw the videotape. That dude never confessed to killing anyone, but you charged him with homicide."
Right.
And I found that to be very, you know, problematic that they will put him in that position knowing what he done. So we had a little falling out. And about maybe a week or two later, he asked me, "Where you want to go?" I said, "Well, they ain't gonna get rid of me because I'm challenging you as being my supervisor because of, you know, the situation with the case that I investigated that you messed up." So all he said was, "Where you want to go?" I said, "Man, you don't even matter to me. I don't even care. I got a couple more years on the job anyway." So they ended up sending me to the sexual assault unit. And that's how I got the sexual assault unit. Not because I wanted to go there. It's because he kicked me out of the office. And he was a piece of shit. And I don't know how the department looked at him as being a leader of a bunch of veteran guys. And what ended up happening, he got rid of all the guys who were there before him. He got rid of all of us. And it's the politics you deal with on the police department. I've never had a problem with any supervisor on the job. I can work with anyone. I don't care who it is, race, gender. I don't even care because I'm a professional. But I had a problem with him being my lieutenant because he purposely charged someone for murder and lied and said the dude confessed. And I watched the videotape. He never confessed. And that's how I got to the sexual assault unit.
Wow. Man, could you imagine though, Mitch, how you caught that, but how many you didn't catch? And
I caught a few more now. Yeah,
it still exists.
Oh, that's my point. It still exists.
Yep, it still existed. I think it's worse. But so yeah, man. So by you being a high profile homicide detective, man, and solving cases, U.S. Attorney Eric Holder chose you to go down Valdosta, Georgia. Tell me a little bit about
wow. Yeah, that was
I checked it out and it was heart-wrenching.
Yeah.
But if you can give us a little outline on that, man. You know, I know you can't give out too much information, but just give us a little outline on that and you know, abreast us of what happened.
Well, I most definitely was honored that towards the end of 2014, Eric Holder requested for myself and my partner, Darryl Richmond, to be involved in this task force to go down to Valdosta, Georgia, and investigate the death of Kendrick Johnson. I wasn't familiar with the case, so of course I did my research, and I was like, "Whoa, shit!" Just reading up on some of the stuff, realizing that, you know, more than likely possibility suspects at that particular time in the paperwork, you know, they were the sons of a decorated FBI agent. So I knew that was going to be problematic, and I believe that's why Eric Holder recused all the federal agencies, because the dad was a FBI agent. So just, you know, getting involved in that case, and we started traveling down there in January of 2015. That whole experience for me as not just as a African-American detective, but just as an African-American, period. Up here, we hear about racism. Some people there may have experienced it, may have more. In our generation, we've heard more about it than we experienced it. But to go down there and actually see it, to feel it, to know that people are going through it, it was just mind disturbing to me that even as a law enforcement officer, people will still treat us that same way because we're Black. Mm-hmm. But Eric Holder sent me and my partner down there because, he know we don't take no shit. We don't investigate some of the most notorious killers in DC history. So, us going down there, we just going down there to do our job. We're professionals. And just to go down there, when I met one young 17-year-old high school student who we snatched off the streets down there because he was down there calling these pretty little young African-American girls, calling them niggers, like it wasn't nothing. And we like, nah, dude, you that ain't gonna happen on our watch.
Right.
So we snatched him up, we brought him in, we talked to him about the case, of course, but he summed it all up for me, and I respected his honesty. Mm-hmm. And this summed up the whole environment. It summed up the whole case. It summed up everything. When we sat him in a chair and he looked up at us and he said, "We're not used to this." Mm-hmm. And I'm like, "Not used to that. You're not used to the police jumping in your shit. You're not used to, He said, "Nah, that ain't that." I said, "Well, you're not used to detectives interviewing you, interrogating you, bringing you in. I mean, what's the problem?" He said, he was cool and calm. That ain't it. I said, well, I'm like, what you not used to? The way y'all talking to us down here. Mm. I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, "Can I be honest?" I said, "Yeah, I want you to be honest." We sat down. I'm like, what? He said, "Black people don't talk to us down here the way you all talking to us, and they don't treat us the way you all are treating us." He said, "Black people ain't scared of us." This is from a 17-year-old high school student. He said, "Black people are scared of us." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "They scared of us." I'm like, oh man. So we got on this conversation about nigger. He said, "We've been calling them niggas all my life." So everything he's getting is learned behavior.
Right.
It's learned behavior. And I'm not even mad at him because he got it from his parents. He got it from his environment. He got it from his schools. He got it from his community. And it really, I'm sitting there like, wow, this shit is real. Mm-hmm. But then you take that 17-year-old kid, 5 years later, you put him on somebody's police department in an urban community, and then look what you got.
Yep.
Look what his mindset is, okay? Mm-hmm. And that's what we see a lot in the country. But that interview with him made it so real for me. I was like, wow. But I told him, I'm not even mad at you because you're honest. Mm-hmm. And he basically told me, he said, the way you all are treating us down here, you all are making a lot of people uncomfortable. I said, man, we making you all uncomfortable? For years, that's how uncomfortable we've been.
Absolutely.
And he was like, he got the point. Mm-hmm. He got the point. Because we show no fear. We was down there kicking ass. We didn't show no fear. But we were just doing our job. People, right. Even the police, people were calling the police on us because we down there doing our job. People were calling the U.S. Attorney's office. They was calling Eric Holder's office. They was calling the Fed. They was calling Eric, and Eric Holder. Thing Eric Holder was saying was they only answer to me because he deputized us. They only answer to me. So we down there just doing our job. I think for 8 months we were doing a hell of a job. We did enough, whereas we believe we were about to get the FBI agent indicted for obstruction of justice. We did 21 search. After we got the 21 search warrants, as you saw in the documentary, the raid we did on his house and everything. All of a sudden, we get a call saying return to DC.
Right.
And we like, return to DC. Mm-hmm. We never went back. We down there busting ass. We down there developing information on the case. We about to lock up an FBI agent for obstruction of justice. And all of a sudden, they said, pump the brake. It almost made me think that we were only sent down there to satisfy the Black community who was raising hell.
Mm-hmm. And they didn't expect all that hell to come.
Exactly. They didn't know they was sending some people down there that's going to really raise some hell. We went down there to investigate the crime. We ain't go down there to look pretty. We ain't go down there for no photo op like how people do on Facebook. We went down there to work. Mm-hmm. And I don't believe they thought we were going to be able to do anything. Mm-hmm. So I believe that what we did ended up forcing them to throw us off the investigation.
Yeah, man. And in addition to that, Mitch, almost at the end of the documentary, to find out the information that you found out that the young kid had seen Kendrick, and when he said he didn't see him, I know that blew your mind. It was obvious in the documentary.
Yeah,
How?
it was. I had no idea what they was going to show me. I
Mm-hmm,
had. That's why my expression was real. I
mm-hmm,
had no idea they was going to show me a photograph that basically showed them damn near beside each other, and I've never seen that footage. I've never seen that footage.
but
And I was on a damn case. I never seen that footage.
right, but you were also suspicious about the time lapse in the video. Now, why just the gym? No other time lapse, but in the gym. You know, all the information was.
Man, it's just. But
I think.
even before that, my first visit at the FBI office in Atlanta, I saw that, and I'm going off at the FBI dude, the analyst dude. He wasn't even an agent; he was just a computer geek. I'm going off him like, dude, I edit videos.
Mm-hmm,
Parts are missing.
mm-hmm,
You know, so I'm going back and forth with him on that. But he just received it. He had nothing to do with the video. He just had it in his custody.
mm-hmm.
But after that, we went to this is what really blew my mind. We went to the medical examiners, the coroner, the state coroner for that particular region. And I asked her, how did Kendrick Johnson die? When she said, well, I believe, when she said, I believe, I said, oh, stop. So she looked at me like, I said, you believe? I said, you not starting your sentence out with facts? What do you mean you believe? She said, can I finish? I said, go ahead. So she's saying, this is what she told me. She said, I believe, she said, based on talking to other students, no one saw anything. Based on her theory, she believed that he climbed down into the mat to retrieve his shoe and got stuck. I said, how in the hell he gonna ignore or not pay attention or not just knock the mat down to get his shoe? I said, why couldn't that have been your theory? I said, why couldn't you come up with a theory that he was beaten in place inside the mat? You don't have a fact that your theory is true. You don't have a fact that he was murdered. You have no facts at all.
It makes
sense.
I've
been to hundreds of autopsies. I said, matter of fact, I know some cases today where they didn't have facts and the cases are still left undetermined. So you should have left the case undetermined. And that way the evidence would have been preserved. All this body part missing stuff, everything would have been intact until you found some facts to go with your investigation. But due to the fact that she ruled it an accident, now everybody's sloppy. No one's doing no more investigating. Body parts are missing. The clothes, the evidence is missing. Everything is missing because you don't rule the accident based on your theory. You don't rule the case on a theory.
Right.
So basically, tell me you could have went either way. You could have said, okay, it's a homicide. Okay, it's an accident. But you go accident on a theory, but you can't use a theory to rule it a homicide. You can't. You just can't. And you really can't rule a theory to make it accidental. So she got hot, she got pissed off, and she ended up throwing us out of her office because we were digging in her shit because we were experienced enough. We know how autopsy. We don't work with a lot of medical examiners, a lot of doctors here in DC, whereas they can't make a decision. They leave it undetermined. It can be left undetermined for years. But she said accidental, and that went with the I guess the way they wanted to be down there, I guess. And that just the entire investigation. It was totally unbelievable.
Unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. Now I had to look at it twice. And I tell you, it just jaw dropping. And when they opened it back up, and now I just learned that they closed it. They closed the case again.
Yeah, they closed it. And even now, they closed it, but even now that sheriff down there is not being honest about what he read. If he read all of the paperwork, if he read all the findings from the different doctors who examined that body, if he read everything, he won't be making the comments that he's making today. He's making some comments. I know he did not read certain things. If he did, he wouldn't be making those comments that he's making today.
Wow.
And I think maybe it's done on purpose. I mean, I don't know, but I don't think he read everything. Talking 17 boxes of evidence. He didn't read all that. There's no way. I know he did.
Yeah, I just think it's a major conspiracy down there. That's all.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for the family, and I tell a lot of people, even if Kendrick was white and the suspects were black, I still feel the same way, that the family was treated like some shit, that the family did not get a fair investigation. It has nothing to do with the color of the skin. For me as a detective, it has something to do with the integrity of the investigation. That was done improper. First of all, from the beginning, the crime scene, the schools should have been locked down. Every damn student in that building should have been interviewed. They let school continue on. It was everything continued like it wasn't nothing. Here it is, Kendrick not found, his parents don't know anything until the next day. It was just man, it was just,
it's amazing.
It was just bullshit. But I'm gonna say this last thing right here on this pod. If Kendrick was white, I'm sorry, if the roles were reversed, if Kendrick was white and the suspects were black, I would have never got called.
Oh yeah, they'd have been under the prison.
I would have never even visited Valdosta, Georgia. Never. They wouldn't even never called us. Closed and shut. And they would have charged them. They would have charged whomever so damn quickly because it was a white victim. Yeah, and I'm just being honest.
There's a reason why that 17-year-old was calling them niggas like that. One, yeah. Like he said, but it's the history of Valdosta, Georgia.
And I didn't know that until I saw the film.
The history.
I didn't know that.
Wow. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, KKK prevalent down there, Jack, for sure. So, Mitch, how did you get into the film industry, man? You go from the police to the film industry. What made you switch? Or what interested you in that?
I'm telling you like this, I got into it. My son was going to McKinley Tech High School. And at the time, I had a video camera. You do all that. Okay. But he was playing football for McKinley, and they had a lot of seniors in the team. And he asked me, could I film their games and create, back then when you had what's that thing they have today? Back then you had to do it yourself. It wasn't even digital then. So I started filming these games, and I started creating highlight reels for all the seniors so they can have to send to colleges. So I did it for my son, did it for maybe like about 10 of his friends. And then when I finished, I still had that big old camera. I said, man, I'm gonna do something. So I had jumped out there and just said, you know what? I'm gonna try a web series. I didn't know anything about web series. I saw a couple of them, Skinny Cologne, Anthony Anderson, local guys. I saw their web series. Let me do this. So I did a web series, created a web series. I wrote the script all improper. I didn't know how to do anything. So, but I put a web series on YouTube called Dirtier Than Ever, which was a fictional character about a dirty cop. I put it on YouTube, and it got so hot on YouTube. A producer who did the movie, I don't even remember the movie Pride that Terrence Howard was in years ago, called Pride, with Terrence Howard was on a swimming movie. Yep. That movie, the people involved in that movie saw what I was doing, so one of the guys came to DC and said, man, you wanna turn it into a series, what you're doing? And I'm like, what are you talking about? So he basically walked me through the process. My partner at the time, in reference to that project, was Antoine T Money. But T Money was an experienced actor in the business. He knew all this. I didn't know anything. So we both invested money out of our pockets, maybe like about 40 grand altogether, to give to this production company to turn what we did into something bigger. So we traveling to Baltimore every weekend, and we bring in some DC people. Matter of fact, it was a SAG union project, so it allowed a lot of local people here to become SAG if they choose to. But long story short, even though the project didn't go anywhere, me investing all that money that I invested was like going to college. It was like me paying for education of film, because I'm learning from professionals. And just by me being there on set with them every day, I'm watching, I'm learning. Even though I'm paying them, but I'm learning. It's like, for me, it was more about just getting that film bug. And so I learned so much just by watching them. And then when all that was over, that's when I started doing that. I said, I'm gonna see if I could create a movie. So I did a short film. I wrote a script for a short film, Boss. And we just kept filming and filming and filming, and it turned into a complete movie. So then I got contacted once I started doing premieres for it. People wanted to know if I could get a couple hundred people in the Howard. I'm like, a couple of hundred, man, please. So we ended up selling it out at the Howard, and that's when Howard blew it up. It was the first movie ever at the Howard Theater. Appeared on,
Historic.
Yeah, exactly, man. It was just a historic move, man. First movie ever there. Then I appeared on, of course, before that, I appeared on Fox 5 with Wisdom. And it just blew up. Then I started getting phone calls from people in the industry. They calling me and communicate with me, asking me stuff. I'm meeting with them, going to meetings. I'm doing things. I had no idea what was going on. I'm in meetings on Google, people saying things. I have no idea what they're talking about. So it was just a time that I wasn't ready for. So what I did was I pumped my brakes. I said, you know what? I'm not ready to jump out there. I don't want this. I'm not ready. So I ended up chilling, relaxing, started taking some classes. I did Boss 2, continued to take some classes. And then what happened was entertainment lawyer I met, he had got me to the table at TV One. He took my films and said, this is Mitch Credle, retired detective. Anthony Commodore, he was with me. The attorney was Stephen Bullock. And that's why I respect Tia Smith. She's no longer with TV One. But she said, you know what, Mitch? You jumped out there, no experience. You made 2 movies, okay? She said, but your movies are not for our audience. She said, so what you need to do, she said, you have so much experience as a homicide detective. You need to do what you know. You need to concentrate on what you know, and it will get you places. So I was like, oh. So that's when I did the documentary. I started working on the documentary 12 Years of Hell. So when I started working on the documentary 12 Years of Hell about that Earl we talked about earlier, and started promoting it, now networks are seeing this. So now I'm getting contact by the Netflixes, the A&E, the ID channel, the Dateline, the Star. Now I'm getting contact by networks, but then they're like, oh shit, this dude is a detective and he's in the films, he's telling stories. And then when I created that Cop Stories YouTube page, with me just sitting in the chair talking, now they see that. So now I'm starting appearing on these shows with Dennis Murphy. I'm in Jennifer Lewis's documentary. Now I filmed with Joe Kinder, #1 American detective show, dealing with true crime in the country. So now I'm making a name for myself because I followed the advice of the executive from TV One. And since then, I have not made no movies. I just did that one documentary, and that's what really opened the door for a lot of things where I really pumped my brakes and took the advice of someone who knew the game. I didn't know the game.
Yeah, just imagine, man, if she didn't impart that on you.
Exactly. I'd still be out there making hood movies.
Yep. And that's what we need nowadays is the professional, somebody who really know what they doing to impart that wisdom on us, to lead us in the right direction. That's all we need is that little boost. That's it.
She was a good sister. Matter of fact, I ended up seeing her on LinkedIn not too long ago. I sent her a message. I said, thank you. Your advice has got me to build a relationship with network producers. Has got me to appear in film on 5 different shows. And now I'm doing auditions for, I just did auditions recently for a network, I won't say which one, where they trying to do a show and they want me to be the main person, So, I mean, just opportunities like that starting to come through. And now they can call me anytime. They need something about something in DC. They need something filmed in DC. I hook them up with somebody. I mean, it's just cool just to have a great network. I met the guy who did Schitt's Creek. Schitt's Creek won 9 Emmys a year and a half ago. That was like one of the biggest comedies on television. I met that executive producer because he saw me working on a documentary. So I got to the table of Stars, Sony. I mean, it just opened up so many doors that it just humbled me to just realize that all you got to do is just be yourself, stay focused, stay grounded, and don't, you don't have to be a pawn, man. Just work hard. You don't gotta sell your soul. You don't gotta, you don't gotta stab people in the back over money. You don't gotta do none of that stuff, man. Just be real to yourself and just let God lead you the way He wants you to go.
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head. But oftentimes, as you well know, we have the crab in the barrel mentality. And somebody's always trying to pull you back. One thing I can say though, man, seriously, is this. DMV supports you 100%. The turnout at the Howard Theater was amazing. and the people that came out to support you was amazing. And it was an exciting night. Was proud to know you. It was amazing. It was amazing, bro. So I take my hat off to you. That's why I say
Appreciate it.
glad that you accepted my invitation because you need to be celebrated now.
I appreciate that.
Things that you've done and things that you continue to do. And you even talk a little bit about giving back, how you open up Safe House, how you're giving back to the community nowadays.
Yeah. What happened was, of course, I've always coached youth sports, basketball, football for years in the community, over 35 years. And what happened was I got contacted by someone from, DC government. They said, Mitch, you doing all this film stuff now. This was after I did the Howard thing. They said, can you teach that to kids? And I said, you know what? So that's when I started taking classes at DCTV. Started taking the classes, and then I started working as a substitute teacher to get that educator under my belt because I didn't have that facilitator, educator. I didn't have that on my resume. So I started doing that. And that's when I started, me and my co-founder started Safe House DC, which is a good nonprofit. And it's really been beneficiary because they put us in, normally the last few years we've been over in Ward 8. They give us about 100 Ward 8 youth. And not only do we do the film production thing with them, we teach these young kids, they're from different communities who are beefing, So our biggest thing is to show them the importance of building relationships while you're young. Because like I would take one of the kids who I see them bullying, I'll bring him up front. I said, see this kid right here? In 10 years, some of you gonna be sitting in front of him looking for a job. So just to get them to understand the importance of what networking relationship is, how it don't mean nothing to you now, but it's gonna mean something later. And so we threw in financial literacy, entrepreneurship, of course, alternatives to violence. We threw all that stuff in with the film production, and that's what made the program so successful. The DC government, Department of Employment Services, saw how we were able to take 100 kids from Southeast and bring them together. They doing film projects together. I think we broke down like 5 groups. Each group had to create a PSA, some type of video which involves their community, So we showed them how to do different things because they love digital stuff, they love cameras, they love social media, they love all that stuff. So we just use what they already have within them and show them how to turn into a structured piece that can help them, move forward. And then what was so nice about it is that one of the kids that's in the program the year before that, I saw him on the news one day at his high school receiving a $10,000 grant for film production.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, oh my God. And when I met him, I was like, this dude gonna be a film director one day. And it was just awesome, man. It was really cool. Really cool.
I got this saying, man, if we just reach one, we doing a good job.
Yeah. That's all
that
it takes.
Somebody else. So, that's amazing, man. It brings joy to my heart when we just can show somebody else and they show somebody else.
Yeah,
right?
That's all it takes, man. That's why I like what Stan Richards put on Facebook one day, man. He put a quote on there. It was learn, earn, and return. Yeah. And when he put that on there, I was like, that's what it's about, man. That's what it's about, because for years, 35 plus years, I've always done volunteer work in the community, didn't have no nonprofit. I just did it straight from my heart, straight from my pockets. And, for people to say, oh, Mitch, pump your brakes, you need to create a nonprofit. You didn't retire from the police department. You need to create a nonprofit. And by the way, creating your nonprofit is a business. I'm like, oh, okay. So I learned a lot about how all that worked, and I had no idea it was a business. So now when I do my summer youth programs, now hiring people to work with us. I got a crew that I hired to come work with us. So now I'm employing people through the nonprofit to work with us. And it's been pretty cool. And all of that has propelled the profit side, Safe House Films DC. So now when I get contracts to do people film projects, now I'm hiring people to work with me to help other people produce their films. Right. So it's all worked out pretty cool.
Good, man. You deserve it, brother, for sure. And lastly, Mitch, you're working on documentary of he was one of my favorite.
Oh yeah, that's my guy. That's my guy.
I call him the franchise.
In fact, I talked to him a little before you would call me. That's my guy.
Yeah, man. Good
That's
guy, man. Unfortunately fell off and on his way back and realized, the error of his ways. And, him being a superstar like that, man, it's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, see, a lot of people don't really know Steve's story. A lot of people threw out so many rumors. He was on drugs. He was on this. A lot of people don't know Steve's story. They have no idea what he has gone through. They have no idea where he's been. They don't know the deep side of his life. And that's why when Steve contacted me, because the first, he could have went with ESPN, he could have went with HBO, he could have went with any and everybody, but he wanted to go somebody who he knew, loved, and someone he can trust. Right. Steve played ball for me when he was 12, 13 years old. So I know Steve personally, and I never was the groupie. I never asked Steve for $1.
Right.
Steve always knew I was in the community from my heart. So I think this route he's taking with this project, which is focusing on mental health, he wants somebody who we can trust. Because it's real, man. We have a lot of people, a lot of athletes. Even when Steve has come out recently about some of the struggles and the demons he's dealt with through some of the promotional pieces we've put out there, a lot of athletes have been contacting him. Yeah. So now we're in a position, what we're going to do, we're going to tell his story, then we're going to start telling other athletes' stories. Right. And that's how we're going to do it.
And just like you said, he had to trust you with his story. In order for him to be honest, he got to trust you.
Yeah, and he trusts me. He trusts me, and he know I love him like a little brother. I've been working on a script. We're going to start doing some of the local testimonials real soon. But, he get in contact with ever since he jumped out there now. I only want to start mentioning some of the companies, but major people have been reaching out to him just because we don't put just a little promotional piece out there. We're telling the story because now they know why he was going through the way. They were like, oh, because everybody backed away from him. You know he was on drugs. Steve was never on drugs.
Right.
He was never on drugs. But now people, they're like, oh, shit. So now people are reaching out to him. So now he's in the driver's seat. He can control his own destiny as far as how he wants his story told and who you want to tell his story. So, I commend him for taking charge of his life and not just jumping on the 30-30 piece. They're doing a lot of athletes. Steve want to tell his story his way. And that's how we're going to do it. We're going to tell it his way, and we're going to tell the truth his way and not let networks benefit and get millions off of his story. Well, he can get his own millions and put the millions back into his Steve Francis Foundation, which is a foundation that's been taking care of youth programs here in the DC area for years. He created that program before he got his first NBA check, and it's still in existence.
Wow.
Yeah, people don't know that.
Steve was the man. He still is, man. We all go through those problems, Mitch. His was highlighted because he was the superstar.
He was, man. I think when he went through that crisis, which people don't even know it was a crisis, and not him being on drugs. See, now what's happening is now we all are being more educated on mental health. Think about it. When you grew up, you can never admit weaknesses. You know that.
Right.
We couldn't cry playing sports. We played injured all the time because we couldn't let someone else come and take our position. We couldn't talk about how we felt because it was a softness. So, man, a lot of us are traumatized by our upbringing, and we didn't even know it until we realized and started hearing about mental health. I'm like, mental health? Damn, we all went through mental health? I'm like, really? Even today, we did? We don't even know it. Right. We don't even know it.
Yeah, man, but amazing, Mitch. I'm looking forward to that documentary, man, because he was a DMV favorite for sure. Still is.
He was. He's still, like, he was just recently at Maryland doing something. I think he's still in town. He was just recently at Maryland doing something. The Steve Francis Foundation is still doing a lot of things in the communities, giving money to other programs. He just people don't know him, man. They know him from the basketball court. Steve a good dude. He has a blessed heart, man. And that's why I want him to tell a story the way he want to tell it. And he want to tell it in the docudrama form. He want it told, whereas he got people got actors creating his life, and also we're doing testimonials. So we want to do it a little different than how they do it on 30/30 in them programs, in them shows. I just saw the Muggsy Bogues documentary. We want to do it different. We want to be totally different how everybody else is doing theirs, because we want people to know and see the real story, what really happened to Steve Francis, and where he is today.
Yep, the genuine story. That's all I want to hear.
There you go, the genuine story. And he wants to control the narrative and not let companies or networks control the narrative, who change it up and fix it and switch it up just to satisfy their audience. Because they may tell this part but might leave out this part.
Right.
Steve want to tell the whole story.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's part of his healing too, to be able to tell us.
Yeah, exactly. That's part of his healing. Exactly. Yep.
Absolutely. Well, Mitch, man, I appreciate it, brother. Look, again, I appreciate you and the things that you're doing, bro. You wear multiple hats, and I must say you must stay busy 24 hours a day for sure, but it is well worth it. The reason why I created this platform, Mitch, seriously, again, is to recognize our guys. We go through our struggles. If you look at any of my interviews, man, we had guys who go through struggles, man, but pull through. Now look at what they do.
Yeah.
Just through their experience, right?
There you go.
That's part of our journey as men, right? We get better.
But there you go. We're like wine, man. We're like wine. We get better.
Yeah, absolutely. But I appreciate you, brother. Hey, look, hold on for a second. I'm gonna chop it up with you for a hot minute.
Okay.